that I personally love the research agenda being financed by companies. So, this is why we have trends and information about Caribbean small businesses, women-owned businesses, businesses in innovation. I mean, this is an extremely rich data set, which now we've been able to use to inform policy across the region. So, kudos to Complete Caribbean for that. Okay, good. And can be very powerful to the communities that we're working in. So now I want to ask about your vision for the future. So let's say we're back here in 5 years, and so we have Complete Caribbean plus plus, Complete 4, and we're sitting right. So we have a bigger baby. So we'll be sitting here thinking about what has happened in that. What would you like to see? What would you like to be celebrating at that moment? So just to mix things up.
But it's really an element of replicability and scalability. I think at that point in time, and even now, we have curated a body of work which is very strong and very deep. You pointed out the data side of the equation. So in many respects, the time between now and then is us doubling down on those areas that we've had success. So whether it's the data sets and redoubling our efforts, resourcing it so that we can continue to have data, because this is a region which data is lacking. So coming from the Eastern Caribbean, it's good for me to hear about small successes and hope to see them replicated in Jamaica and elsewhere in the Caribbean. So it's not just the big countries that have the ownership of success stories. So for me, Complete 5 years, 10 years, we have this curated group of successes and failures, and we've doubled down. We've seen them grow larger. We've seen it spread across the region, and what we see in front of us is we see the fruits of all of the hard labor of all of our colleagues in Complete, and a little bit of the resources that we brought to the table.
Well, I want to see Lisa in 5 years being in the next iteration of Complete. In terms of what we want to see, I mean, Complete Plus is working obviously on climate resilient solution, and the Caribbean needs more climate resilient solutions. So in 5 years, more solutions to the problems that the region is encountering. Definitely we want to see that. We want to see more work in the blue economy, because this is the area of growth. More work in all the areas where we see current challenges and increasing challenges. Renewable energy, how that can be fully integrated in the work that we do with the small and medium enterprises. Diversification and helping the Caribbean diversify so that it reduces its dependency in key sectors. So how Complete can contribute to the thinking and to the experimentation in those spaces. So these are areas that I would see the next 3 to 5 years in on the table. We have a food system forum taking place here in a few weeks, Caribbean Economic Forum taking place also in a few weeks, and many other meetings, and they're all talking about bringing investments to the Caribbean, connecting projects, bankable initiative to investments, etc. And I would love that in 5 years, we stop hearing that there's no bankable project in the Caribbean, but that connections could be made between successful projects that we scale up and these investments that seems to be interested in investing in the region. And I see Complete, not to put a lot on your shoulder, Kayla, but I see Complete as being a good place to experiment and show things that can work and that could definitely be replicable or scalable, and therefore attract those kinds of investments. Looking at how we can maximize digitalization so that smaller islands, smaller places can also fully participate in those markets that we're talking about.
I think if we could all consider the changes that happened within the last 6 months globally, and even in the last year, if we could then kind of think about what the 5 years look like, right? And I think it's going to be,
so different than what we're sitting here now. I don't even think you can imagine what 5 years will look like. But again, I would want company to be, you have to be forward thinking, around AI, around changing demographics. I know there's a lot of discussion now around aging populations, digital space, etc. So, we really need to be, as I said, we have to really be forward thinking about how companies can respond to the future challenges and complexities that the world is going to offer. I'm a regionalist at heart, so I think where I would want company to go would be around leveraging the good work that we've done already in the national context and providing more, so 3 things. A more seamless regional investment ecosystem. We are constantly hearing around the challenges around, cross-border transactions, movement of goods, people, services, like financing. I think that is going to become increasingly important going into the future, given all that, the trends, what we're seeing. So we really need to look at more harmonized regulatory frameworks, and more compete. We have started a lot of work in that regard, but I think that could also be enhanced. Secondly, a stronger pipeline of the scalable investments, like you said, in renewable energy, etc., given that, we're anticipating increased climate risk. I think we need to be prepared for it. So how do we actually, I hope that there's a stronger pipeline, again, not isolated national projects, but again, a platform that can attract regional investment. And thirdly, and I think that this is critical, is that people at the center of what we're doing. The CPB's new strategic plan puts young persons at the core, at the center. I think for us to scale and execute and to move forward, young people have to be part of the process. And not as a tokenistic way or on the sidelines. And I know Karina is very onto this with your brand ambassadors and so on, because they have a voice and they're the ones that are going to be carrying on the work. So really and truly to have, those persons, the innovators and builders of, industries and new ways of doing things to be part of the process going forward. Because I think if youth are also not able to scale, the region cannot.
I would agree with everything my colleagues have said. I would agree strongly with Anton about the need for experimentation and scale. I would agree with Avabesh to talk about, a pipeline of bankable projects that are being delivered at pace. I would agree with everything Lisa said about regionalism. You need to come together and hugely echo everything about regulatory reform. I think there's so much that can be achieved by harmonizing, simplifying, grasping regulation, and it's a massive win. So instead of rehashing all of that, I'll go something far more specific. As you might have told by my example, I'm a bit of a techno-optimist, and what I would like to see is compete really innovating and driving forward that piece that connects technology to small businesses, to firms, so that they can thrive and push forward. Take agriculture and food security. The region at the moment is really suffering with high food prices, a lack of economic security with the import dependency and the global shocks to supply chains. At the same time, there's so much innovation going on in food systems, from innovative aquaponics, hydroponics, climate smart farming, pesticide-free pest control using AI, all sorts of things going on around food systems, food production. And these kind of opportunities are actually available to smallholders as much as they are big firms. And I think your Canadian colleague was talking about the democratization of technology. I'm not bought on all of it, but for some of it, it's absolutely there, and I would love to see Compete being absolutely at the forefront of this. To do that, you need to still focus on reforms. This won't happen in a vacuum, and it won't happen if people don't want to invest, if there's not predictability and certainty, if the framework is not good enough to get them in. It won't happen without strong collaboration. Back to the partnership piece we were talking before. It needs finance. It needs innovators to want to be together, and it needs people that understand the geographies that they're operating in, as much as it's somebody to understand the technology. And it needs a bold vision, which is what's been set out, a bold vision for the future, a Caribbean that can seize some of these opportunities to not only grow, but to also manage resilience and vulnerability in the face of climate crisis, in the face of societal pressure, in the face of a need for sustainable oceans and progress. And finally, what it needs is to remember that people are at the centre of all of this. Even when we're talking about technology, it's about people. So I guess what I would like to see is this combined with some of the best of compete, a continued focus on gender and inclusion, a continued focus on climate resilience, but all of that being delivered and done faster and done bigger and done better through harnessing every tool at our disposal, including modern technology.
Thanks a lot. So, the reward for good work is more work. So, obviously, Compete has a lot left to do. And when we